Okay, everyone, and I am back, and this time we are going to be making some actual decent sets and not just our random gathering set. First up, do want to say this is going to be spoilers for everything before Title Update 1, Endgame equipment, skills, stuff like that. So if you have not gotten there yet, let's say, I don't know, HR 41, you might want to skip this. But if you're in the end game, you're past HR 41 and you're looking for some ideas for some Zets, I've got a couple sets that I think are pretty good. So I've spent a couple hours looking at some pieces, a little bit of time fine-tuning things, and I think I've come up with some good ones. So let's take a look at them. Okay, so the concept behind our first set here is maximizing our affinity up to 100% when using a weapon that is not super dependent on stamina. So going through the list of weapons, greatsword works, longsword, sword and shield, not dual blades, hammer if you're not excessively charging all the time, hunting horn all day long, lance if you're using guard 3 and you're not fighting something that hits hard. So probably not against something like Gormagala, but maybe something a little bit weaker where you're not going to be going down too far into your stamina through heavy guards. Gunlance should be fine for the same reason. Switch axe should be fine. Charge blade should be fine. Insect glaive should be fine, so long as you're not flying around all the time. Light bow gun, heavy bow gun, same deal. Shouldn't be an issue. Bow, of course, you're using stamina. So dual blades, gunlance, and bow, probably not going to be the best use for this set, but pretty much everything else other than maybe hammer, maybe lance should be able to use that. A big part of that is the Fulgur Anjanath set ability gives us a little bonus stamina gauge that allows us to do some movement around without triggering the maximum might from going away. So you'll see here right next to our stamina gauge, we have a stamina bar. We can use that without issue. And actually, we can dip into our main bar just a little bit without it going away. If we roll 3 times, though, it will go away. So don't spam evasion. You know, try to be a little consistent without going too hard into it. So that allows us to use maximum might. Maximum might's going to give us 30% affinity. We're going to max out agitator. That's going to give us 15% affinity. The frenzy virus is going to give us 25% affinity, assuming that we're maxing out the antivirus skill with our sane decos. And then we get another 10% from latent power. Everything all together gives us 80% affinity. On top of this weapon of 20%, that would max us out. I do have our level 2 decos here filled out with coalescence. Again, this is assuming you're going to be using some sort of an elemental build. If you're not, you can maybe switch this around a little bit. Counterattack, Furer, Maximum Might, or you could even take a look at some of the other sets. Likewise, I'm using the Blongo Mail here because I just think it has very good value for Agitator. Again, you could end up switching this out for some sort of an Arc Veld or something like that if you'd rather have Flare. That's not necessary. The main, most important things are 2-piece Fulgur to keep us in that maximum might range, and then 2-point score to give us that little bonus attack, and something to trigger our coalescence, as well as the bonus affinity from going over our frenzy. You can see here I'm using the burst talisman as well. Depending on your decos, you could always switch things around. But just to show what it looks like here, let's go ahead and trigger everything on and off here with the cat. Make sure everything's cleared. And so here we are from go. So even without doing anything, we are at 75%. That is, of course, assuming the monster's enraged and our latent power is triggered. Latent power is a pretty small part of everything, so it's really not an issue. And if you're using something like the Corruption Mantle anyways, you're going to have an extra 10% affinity until that triggers anyways. Okay, and then easily that gets us to 100% affinity. Like I said, I think this works best in this exact scenario with elemental weapons. Again, not saying you can't use this with raw, tweaking some things around on your own. But the way the weapons are kind of set up right now, especially the Ardian weapons, it feels like you're better off using at least a little bit of element rather than nothing at all. Okay, so this next set is not optimal. Don't bother looking at my weapon here because somehow I still have not gotten a level 3 artillery deco. If I did, I would be running 3 points of attack. What are you going to do? I would run attack, or I would run maybe more guard. I'm not 100% sure. But the idea here is we're taking advantage of, again, combining gore with our new Udra set to kind of, utilize the bonus attack you get from the Frenzy Virus, as well as being able to max out Resentment, get bonus damage from Resentment, get more attack from Agitator, and so on and so forth. If you wanted to switch out some of these level 1 decos because you wanted to max out Antivirus, because you wanted more affinity, you could do that. The way it's set up right now, though, is kind of funny. We're planning on taking a lot of damage and then healing it back up when we're getting to a point where we might die. So one silly / interesting part of this build is if you wanted to go out of your way, you could actually bring small barrel bombs with you and periodically use them at the start of a fight. Or you could also, of course, just have the cat attack you as well, or the monster attack you as well if you have a lot of defense. Actually, I want to set the cat to throwing. And, I was originally using 4-piece gore, and that wasn't bad. You do get a little bit bonus damage from running 4-piece gore, but I found it wasn't really enough, at least not compared to just getting your bonus damage from the cat here. Oh, it actually looks like we didn't successfully overcome the virus, but that's okay. That actually increases our damage somewhat. We get a little bit of a bonus from New Udru whenever we're afflicted by a negative status. So you can see our total attack is getting close to 300. It sometimes goes over 300. But again, this is a set that's planning on using a lot of healing, and its entire goal is just maxing out our raw. So specific to gunlance, there are a lot of choices out there. My personal favorite right now is the Guardian Arcveld gunlance. It has among the highest raw with wide, with slightly strong. And the reason why I like it is when you compare it to long, with magazine, you only end up getting 1 extra shell on long. It's the same thing with wide. You get 1 extra shell on wide, but 1 extra shell on wide is a lot stronger than 1 extra shell on long. Normal does get 2 extra shells, and against something that's very weak to fire, you could even try and tune this around a little bit and use the Quematrice gunlance. But honestly, you're not using your gunlance as attacks that often anyways. So if that's in that case, I just feel like I'd rather use the Guardian Arcveld. Okay, and this last setup here is for dual blades or bow, and could potentially be used on hammer, or if you're using something maybe like lance and you find you're constantly running out of stamina, you don't want to use that first setup. The idea here is we're using latent power, and we've got 2 points of the Ray Dow set bonus to kind of help hold on to that latent power a bit longer while still utilizing Gore Magala. And the fun part here is because we have 3 points of Gore Magala, if we do end up going low on our health, we get a little bit of bonus additional stamina depletion. So between latent power, between constitution, between marathon runner, we have a lot of things that are helping maintain our stamina usage and keeping it very, very low. Of course, the weapon you have is going to help to, partially determine how much latent power you use versus how much burst you use. In this case, I'm using 5 points. That's going to get us up to 75% affinity with our weapon. And then antivirus should get us up to 100%. If you rolled higher on affinity, you can change that around, or in theory, you don't even necessarily need it at a full 100% if you wanted to run more burst instead. Okay, so here we are, latent power is activated, we're at 75%. And again, we could use our Corruption Mantle here. You know, normally when you're starting with Corruption Mantle, that'll give you a little bit of a bonus affinity while you're working on getting latent power out if you're in an actual fight. Again, latent power is triggered by being near a large monster, taking damage, but also dealing damage as well. So it really does trigger a lot faster now. This isn't 3rd gen anymore. And so even if we take off our Corruption Mantle now, we're at 100% affinity. So you can see once burst is triggered, you know, we've got on dual blades almost 60 fire on our dual blades. So these are all pretty decent sets. I have messed around with, and I might end up making a set later on for maybe a slightly more friendly set. If you're finding you're dying a lot, and I feel like people aren't yet really suffering, you know, there is the possibility of using Arkveld mixed with Guardian Arkveld, you know, kind of maximize out those bonuses. I'll show it. I'll show what I was using. This was, again, a very, very early set I made when I didn't have any decos, and I was playing around with elemental absorption. I was messing around with convert element. Ultimately, I didn't really like them. There's not many things you're fighting in the game that are particularly weak to dragon. A lot of people think Arkveld is weak to dragon. He's really not. He's not really weak to any element. In fact, when you're fighting him, other than the incidental fire damage from gunlance, I find that using status is better. You know, you might find differently, but for now, I didn't really focus on that. But just keep in mind, if you are finding you're dying or you're finding that you still need to grind up a lot of parts to make things, Flare is going to get you a lot more wounds, and then with those wounds, you'll get more parts, as well as, of course, if there's wounds, you could focus strike them, and you'll be more safe as you're attacking them. And then, you know, most importantly are these things here. Arkveld's Hunger. It's kind of like Health Augment from the other games. It's not as good, but it's a way to top you up. And then Decimator, which if you're, you know, destroying a wound, you're going to get a little bit of health back. Again, I wouldn't wholly recommend this set, and I certainly wouldn't recommend the alpha pieces if you have anything remotely resembling decent decos. It's just these are what I made as I was transitioning into those other sets, just for something to show as you're building towards something else. So you've been hanging out in your high rank Arkveld, or you've been hanging out in your low rank Arkveld set until you got HR 41. You can kind of go into this a little bit, and then from here you can go into those other sets. All right, that's it for now. If you have any requests for any specific weapons, let me know. I'll probably get into Ardean weapon crafting in the next couple of days. I might look at some other set bonuses. God knows I was looking at some really weird ones. The Shea Wu one is really funny. You eat a well-done steak, you get 15 raw. I don't think it was really worth it, but it is interesting because then the set also comes with Adrenaline Rush. So there might be something there for people that want to eat a lot of steaks and are consistently dodging, but for now, I'm holding off. All right. See you soon. Goodbye.